Hello everyone, I'm back. I have some content today that is not yarn, but I had talked about how I love gardening and whatnot. Well, winter has kind of put me a little behind on my indoor planting. Um, we got about 7 inches of snow last night. As of what? Today is Monday, the 26th, 27th, something like that. I'm not sure of the exact date. Um, so anyways, I should have planted on the first day of spring, technically. Um, so I'm a week behind. I don't think it'll be that big of a deal because I usually plant Mother's Day weekend outdoors. That may or may not happen this year. We'll see what the weather does from here on out. We are supposed to get snow 3 more times in the next week, so oh, my frustration with the weather. Um, so we are going to bring a little gardening content today. Like I said, I'm not a pro at this. I'm sitting here holding my phone. I'm sure it's a little shaky and I apologize for that, but I don't know how else to do this. So I'm just going to kind of show you guys my process of what I do to get my garden started indoors. I have a very wide variety because I don't do a whole lot of fruit. Fruit tends to need a lot more water than we're usually allotted during the summer. We have a lot of water restrictions every year in the area I live in. So I have not been super successful with my fruit. It's just never what it should be. If I had some sort of irrigation system or something, it would be different, but we are monitor very closely of what water we use. So, all right, I'm going to flip the camera around and fair warning. The room that I'm in is our spare bedroom. This is, I just try and get my plants set up in an area where it's out of the way. I have at times when I don't have room, because we've had all the kids living with us or family living with us, I will move my furniture around. My plants are more important than my living room looking good, and I don't care if I'm growing my garden in my living room. But I have a spare bedroom that I'm putting everything in that's going to be right in front of the windows. I also have lights that I won't be showing you all that set up today because I probably won't be able to get my lights set up today. That I help my plants to grow big and strong so that when they do get in the ground, sometimes they're producing a little earlier that way. Kind of like doing it in a greenhouse effect. I keep, a lot of moisture in the air and do what I can to keep enough warmth and just the appropriate growing conditions for them. So also before I turn the camera around, I'm going to let you guys know it's kind of a mess. There's always dirt everywhere with this, and my pots and all my growing stuff looks a little dirty, but I reuse until I can't reuse all my growing containers, whatever I can do to keep stuff out of the landfill. So I will reuse it until it's not reusable, which means that I clean at the end of every season all my potting containers. There's a mix. I have memory issues, so I can't tell you exactly what's in the mix, but there's like soap and bleach to kill any sort of bacteria, fungus, whatever. And then, it dries out all winter. I keep it all put up, but I never scrub it. It's not dishes. We're not going to be eating off of it. I'm going to be putting dirt back into these containers. So they don't look super clean, but they're sanitized. So for any of those who are familiar, I'm not reusing it and risking having like some sort of fungus or bacteria grow back into my plants or something. So I just want to say that because it does not look like I have cleaned them, but I don't care what it looks like. Anyway, all right, let's flip this camera around and show you my setup here. Okay, let's see. I apologize a little. So I have, these are, like I said, these have all been like reused. These are like my really small ones. I like to start out a lot of like my vegetables and stuff in these. And just pretty much all of my little plastic containers. I like to start out most of my seeds in those and then replant them. That way the roots can get really established. And if they get really established first before you transplant them, you get a good root system on them. And then you switch them to a bigger pot until they need another bigger pot, which I do like to try and get a lot of these into the, these are the 3-inch pots. I have a new container that I'm getting ready to open because those you can plant into the ground and they're like biodegradable. So I love that about them. So I do try and get them into that. But if we're having a late winter and stuff, a lot of times I need to put them into even bigger pots, which, I have these, which they're just, Dollar Tree is where I got all of these. And, once you transplant them into these at the stage that they're at, those bigger holes don't really make a whole lot of a difference because you got to get good root system established. Very rarely do I use, some of these bigger pots, but every once in a while I will hope and pray that some of them get bigger. And I do have another stash, which I don't bring up here until needed because at this point I don't want to start just taking up room. I've got, trays to put everything in. And I have pans that I put everything in when I get the water in it so that I don't just have water obviously run everywhere. This tray has a bottom and stuff, and my bag of soil was sitting in it and kind of leaked. So that soil is just what came out of my bag. I do use, and I have multiple bags. I mean, I'll probably go through with what I have, I don't know, 4 or 5 of these bags, these 12-quart bags, when planting my seeds. And for me, you can use other soil, but this seed starting mix is amazing. My plants always do so much better on them. I have a lot more success with the size that they grow to before I plant them. All right, let's just show you some of the stuff that I plant. Now, some of my seeds are from last year. I will keep them and do what I can to get them to grow. And I only think out of all the seeds ever of me taking them from one year to the next, I only think maybe once or twice have I not had something grow out of it and produce well. And sometimes they end up being my better producing plants. Not that there's correlation there, but I'm just saying that I haven't noticed it ever mattering. So my son loves spicy. So I always do some habaneros, but I try not to plant them around any other peppers in my garden. Sometimes I will plant them in like my front flower beds because, they grow pretty and they flower and you can't really tell the difference anyway. So sometimes I'll plant them up front. I have made the mistake of planting them by my other peppers at times, and I'll go and grab a sweet pepper that ends up setting my mouth on fire. Not a wise move. We will be moving, so unfortunately there's a lot of this stuff that I probably won't be able to harvest, but I'm hoping it'll be a good selling point to have this nice, beautiful garden for somebody else to move in and hopefully take care of and harvest what food I'm giving them. That's one thing that I love about gardening is there's nothing better for me than growing something from dirt and a seed and being able to feed my family from it. I apologize. I shake really bad. So, I've got mini bell peppers and I have another hot pepper blend, which is basically, it's kind of like um, it's spice. They're usually spicier than Anaheim's, but I don't know how to describe them. They're a pepper I found last year and I made them, I put them in my salsa last year and they had amazing flavor. So I don't know what happened, but my cantaloupe seeds got wet and I don't know if they're going to work. We'll see. I'm going to try. That's not something I usually can make produce anyway, so I figure I might as well give it a shot, and who knows, maybe we'll have enough water with all this snow and I'll be able to grow successfully. I usually do a wide variety of tomatoes. I love tomatoes. I love to snack on them. I make salsa. I make sauces. They are something that never goes to waste in my house, no matter how many I produce. I mean, I can, and I share with my neighbors and stuff as well. If I'm getting overwhelmed with them, I'll be bringing some produce over to my neighbors. This one is going to be a new one for me. I'm excited to try this tomato black cherry. And I have a different kinds of seeds here and stuff. And I do this every year. It just depends on what I feel like I need help getting started more. I will pay a little more for the So Easy. They just help the seeds start off better if it's something I feel like I might have a problem with. I always have a problem with starting onions. So the So Easy are better for me to get in these seeds. Sweet onions. Oh, and in my salsa, so good. Cucumbers. I do zucchini and squash every year. And sometimes I regret it because it is one of those things that I have a hard time controlling the bugs. The squash bugs are just a nightmare here. The crookneck. We do a lot of squash. We eat a keto, low carb lifestyle. And so, we eat a lot of produce in my house, both me and my husband, for our health problems. Eggplant, that's going to be a new one for me this year. I have been dying to grow eggplant, and we'll see if I can make it work. Now, these seeds up here, these are my radish seeds. I have some yellow, some golden ones, and some long radishes. They're a little sweeter rather than quite as spicy. I always grow big sunflowers and harvest the sunflower seeds, or the skyscrapers. At some point, I will take you guys when we don't have a ton of snow, and I will show you my garden areas. And then my peas, but those go straight into the ground. I don't grow those inside, so I just set those up. Now, I have multiple flower beds as well all around my house. I have hanging baskets that I do flowers from. So I have a variety of flowers. The bees, so important for my garden to be pollinated. I like to attract all the bees that I can. So, and the butterflies, I actually have a milkweed garden in my backyard, which is really good for the monarchs, and they are disappearing. So anyways, the flowers, I do petunias in my baskets, pansies. Every once in a while, I'll put a pansy petunia mix in my baskets. Sometimes I'll put the pansies in the ground in between my cosmos. I have a snapdragon garden that I do not really all by itself, because I line it. I get zinnias in the back, and they grow. I have a cement wall that they grow up against, and they grow taller than the snapdragons. So it's kind of like a waterfall effect of, taller to shorter flowers. And it's just, I have people drive by and stop and tell me, oh my gosh, I love your flowers. They are so beautiful. So I do a little color. I like a little color out there. All right, I'm gonna turn this back around. And I'll probably do another video. You know what? No, I'm going to just pause it. I'll finish getting the rest of my stuff ready and just kind of show you guys how I plant them, I'll get some dirt ready and continue to the process of how deep I plant the seeds and stuff, and how to follow the directions on the bag. That's always really important because every seed gets planted at a different depth. And like I said, some of these need a little bit more room to start. I always plant my squash, my cucumbers in the bigger containers rather than the small ones because they seem to grow much bigger, much faster. And you can run into some problems with definitely having them either grow in together or and strangle each other out before you can even get them in the ground. At least that's been my problem because I, give them what they need to get big fast. And so they need a little more space than stuff like the flowers and the tomatoes and stuff. Those don't need quite as much in the beginning. All right, I will be back in a minute or right away for you guys. Real quick before we get started, look at all that snow out there. Doesn't that look like winter time? That doesn't look like spring. Oh my goodness. Okay, so because I don't like dirt under my nails, during this part I always wear rubber gloves. I mean, of course, when I'm outside gardening, I wear gardening gloves. But for me, my nitrile gloves are the best to do this with. So, and don't mind me, I don't match and I don't care. It was too chilly for just a tank top on. But it's too warm in my house to put on more than what I'm wearing. And the puppies, they need to help. They're, laying on the bed behind me. All of them are in here except for Cookie. They like being with Mama wherever she is. So I'm going to turn the camera down and show you guys what exactly I do as far as like how much of what I put in where. I guess I better get my bag open. I thought I was prepared to start showing a little more of my process. So for an good old kitchen spoon, it works best for this for me. This is my gardening kitchen spoon. Any sort of gardening tools, like any spades or little gardening shovels, it's too big to do this process. And like I said, I don't like getting super dirty. I'm kind of a sissy girl when it comes to that. So yeah, this definitely works best. Oops, I crushed that one in. For, putting the dirt in. But you want to get it in there and you want to get it like not so compact that the roots can't grow through it. And I make a huge mess in this room. I got an amazing vacuum and my carpets aren't exactly in the best shape. They're out of I think the 70s when my house was built. They're baby blue if you ever catch a glimpse of it in the bedrooms. I've remodeled a lot of my home. And you got to make sure you leave enough room for the seeds in there and stuff, especially where most of this container is going to be my tomato seeds. And on there, it always says 1/4 inch. Now, 1/4 inch isn't very much, but you don't want the soil to where when you put water in it that it overflows out and then you end up losing your seeds out. So it's always important to make sure that you've got enough dirt in there for the roots to grow, but not so much that you're going to wash it out when you put the top dirt back in. And like I said, you want to just kind of pat it down. Not so hard that you don't want, your seeds to get a good growth. And, I'm not the most experienced gardener. I'm not no professional or anything, but I have grown a garden every year. I think I skipped 1 year right after some health issues. I had, actually, I don't know if I skipped. I think I made my husband help me with it, and I kind of tried to maintain. I ended up in the hospital in June. Let's see. No, you know what? I don't think I had a garden that year because I was in the hospital May, June, and I had to relearn to walk again, and I still don't have the function in one of my legs. It's a long story. I'll tell you a little bit about while I'm doing this gardening because it's a little boring. I had, when we first moved into this home in 2017, I had a little spill off my front steps. I hit some ice and my feet went right out from underneath me, and I went down only 3 steps, but it was just enough. I landed doing the splits. Ouch. When that happened, I tore the labrum, what's called labrum in my hip. Not that I would know because, the doctors kept telling me that it was in my, well, not that it was in my head, that it was coming from my back. The pain was coming from my back because in the same fall, managed to herniate a disc in my back, and then they said that's where the pain was coming from. Doctors and doctors, scans and scans. I kept telling them it sure feels like it's coming from my hip and not from my back. Physical therapy off and on. Well, 2.5 years later, so 2019, multiple doctors. I finally quit going to the doctors because nobody was listening to me anyways, and I could feel it coming in and out of place, and the physical therapist taught me how to put it back in place on my own, and so I would just do that, and then there came a time where it just wouldn't stay in place. So, and I was no longer sleeping at night from the pain, so I had decided to finally see if I could find another hip doctor that could tell me what in the world was going on, why I was in so much pain with my hip. And well, when I went to him, he says, honey, it's too late. Your hip joint is gone. You don't have anything left. I can't, you need a hip replacement. I can't really help you. He's like, you're so young, I don't want to do a hip replacement on you. I want to send you to some other doctors and see if anybody can get in there and repair it and at least get you another 4 or 5 years out of your hip before we do a replacement. So I went to a few other doctors, his recommendations and others, and all of them told me the same thing. Well, I'm not touching you because all that's going to happen is we're going to go in and we're going to fix that labrum tear. And it'll re-tear because you have no joint left to hold your hip in place. You need a hip replacement. At that time, they'll repair the tear in the labrum. So, lo and behold, that was the end of 2019, and COVID was just starting to cause chaos. And I waited and waited for the surgery, and finally they called me up and they said, okay, we got clearance to do surgery. We want to do your surgery on May 11th, which is mine and my husband's anniversary. Wasn't too keen on it, and this was in 2020. But I said, well, I guess if I need fixed and there's nothing else I can do to get my hip to stay in place and it's just going to keep getting worse, I better, get on with this so I can get on with my life, because I was walking and running miles and miles every day, and my life had come to a halt at that point because every time I'd move, my hip would come out of place. So got scheduled, went in for the hip surgery. He says, man, your hip was really bad. It was really torn, and I had a really hard time getting your hip in place, and I had to be really, really rough on you. I had to bend you in ways that I've never had to do before to get your hip in place, He's like, I'm going to keep you in the hospital because, you're going to need pain control, and we got to have your leg wake up before you can go. Well, I went to go stand up on my leg, and I fell in the hospital. And then I was like, man, my leg's just not waking up. What's going on? Well, they sent me home after a couple of days and said, if your leg doesn't wake up in a few days, you need to call the doctor and let him know, because your leg should be awake by now. And I was, only one leg working. I was with a walker dragging my other leg around. And week went by and I still had no feeling. I could feel part of my leg. It was really weird. Only like the very outside edge of my leg, but from about 2 inches from the groin down, I could not feel my thigh, most of my calf. I could move my foot, but I could not do anything else. It was the strangest thing to experience. And, well, week went by. He says, I don't know what's going on. I think, you just need those nerves to wake up. Oh, it's no big deal. Sent me on my way. Well, finally, I was like, I went to another doctor and I said, I can't feel my leg. He did some tests and he says, we've got a problem. You've got femoral, I can't remember what it's called. Oh my goodness. Part of my memory problems are because of the nerve medications and trauma. So anyway, did a bunch of nerve studies. Anyways, my femoral nerve, my sciatic, I don't know, there was 6 major nerves that were damaged. They said it looked like he stretched my leg so far that he stretched the nerves beyond their capacity, and they weren't broken, they weren't snapped or cut, they were just stretched to the point where they couldn't function anymore. They couldn't get a signal from one part of the nerve to the other. They said, well, sometimes nerves can regenerate and you can get some feeling back, but if you don't have anything back within 18 months, now remember this was in May of 2020, and if you don't get anything back in 18 months, you'll never get it back. Well, lo and behold, I got a little bit back. Not of the important ones, of course. My femoral nerve is still non-functioning, and this is over 3 years later. I won't get back anything that I don't have, which is fine. I've learned to function in life quite well, but because of that, in June, because of not being able to move my leg, not having any muscle control. Remember, I couldn't flex any muscle in my leg at all. Your blood needs those muscles to help those arteries and the veins and vessels to all pump the blood where it needs to, so your heart doesn't have to work so hard. And that's why they always say, when you're on a plane, you got to get up and walk, or you're going to get a blood clot. Or, they always tell you can't stay down. Like, you have to have mobility in order so you don't get blood clots. Well, I got a blood clot. I couldn't figure out what was going on. I had pain that I couldn't describe because I couldn't feel most of my leg. I could only feel parts of my leg. And it was just this horribly intense feeling that the only way I can describe it is it literally felt like my leg was going to explode, that the skin was just going to rip and that everything was just going to explode internally. I don't know how else to explain it. I went in and I knew I was in trouble in the emergency room when behind the emergency room doctor, after my ultrasound, walked in like 11 nurses and doctors. They all gathered around because they had to hear what in the world was going on. I had a blood clot the entire length of my leg that went from my ankle up past my hip joint, behind, like through my groin, up behind my belly button. And they were like, honey, we are going to knock you out. You're going to go to the ICU. You are going to have surgery, and we will do everything we can to save your leg. Traumatic. I didn't have a garden that year. Anyways, that'll be the end of that story. There's lots more. As you get to know me, you'll get to know a little bit more. But, don't feel sorry for me. I got a lot of problems, but everybody does. And like I said, I function well. Here I am, and I have a very. That's actually. Let me talk to you about this because. Sorry, I told you I'm a talker. That's why I started crocheting. I started crocheting in July of 2020. I felt like my life was over. I laid in bed and felt sorry for myself for a hot minute. All my plans went out the window. Me and my husband, we planned to travel and hike. And like I said, we were very active. I've gained a ton of weight. Things were just a different world, a different life for me back then. We did go hiking. We went hiking with our kids and stuff. We just had all these plans. And getting my hip fixed was getting me back to that. And it destroyed that world, the world we had planned. It didn't destroy my world. We just have to live a different one now. But it definitely has made my life not easy. But my life is great. I have my problems. I've had to have multiple surgeries on my leg. I just had one in January. I've got a lot of nerve problems. I have a lot of pain. But doing stuff like this and crocheting and spending time with my wonderful babies, they got me through it. I would fall a lot at first. And Titan would just stand over me and protect me because I'd be laying on the ground screaming. And there's a reason I love my dogs so much. They have been a lot of my strength. My husband, my kids, they have all, if you guys knew the things that they've done for me to get us through this, my son was getting ready to move out. My middle son was getting ready to move out, and he stayed at home to help take care of me. My 16-year-old, she was homeschooled at the time. She's not 16 anymore. She's 18, but she was homeschooled, and she took care of me. I couldn't dress myself. I couldn't, my husband took off 2 months of work. I couldn't get to the bathroom by myself. I had to relearn to live life again. And it was a very hard couple of years. And my family is amazing. They are so incredible for what they've done for me. And so are my dogs. Like I said, when my family hasn't been able to be there for me, my dogs were there. There were times I just had to cry and talk, and nobody wants to listen to people whine all the time. I couldn't do it to my family or my friends. It gets old. I don't like hearing myself talk about it. But it is part of my life. So I do want some sort of an understanding, when you guys do see me with my cane or with my walker or crawling around in my yard or my garden instead of walking because I can't. There's explanations for it all. And it's nothing to feel sorry about. It's incredible that I'm still able to do the things that I do. So don't feel sorry for me. Prayers are always accepted that my pain could lessen. That would be freaking amazing. But other than that, things are great. Things are different. I don't go to the stores hardly ever. I do everything online because a trip around the store is so hard for me. And not always do you go and have a cart available. Not always do you go and feel like having everybody stare at you while you're riding in a cart because you look fine. So for me, I want to say 99 times out of 100, I do online orders. I go to the store maybe once every 3 months. But that's okay. Like I said, life is incredible. It really is. And look at this. This is bringing life too. I am so excited to start my garden. I feel so bad I haven't started it, but I've waited a week. Okay. Sorry. Okay, we're going to start with tomatoes. And let's see. Do I want to start with my early tomatoes first? Really? And I graph everything on notebook paper because I can't keep track otherwise. I have a whole bunch of little stakes to put in, but I'm not going to put a stake in every single thing. So I just graph out in a notebook and say this row, and this row, that's this tomatoes or that. So that's how I keep track. I'm sure tech savvy people could, you know, do that on the computer and not handwrite everything out, but that's not me. So, we're gonna, these ones, these are some of the big boy hybrid tomatoes. These are huge. These are so good for, I really like these. These aren't one of the sweeter varieties, but these are really good for doing stuff like my salsas and stuff. They juice really good. They're so good. I love, they're not considered a slicing tomato, but who doesn't love a, oh, I dropped a seed. A big old slice of tomato with some salt and pepper on it. That seriously, I eat that probably once a week, and I just dropped one again. See, this is harder to do with the gloves on. And usually I have some tweezers to grab the seeds with, but I don't. So I'm going to use my handy dandy spoon. I'm going to put my camera back down so you guys can see. Maybe. Okay. Maybe if I... And you do not want to do more than 1 or 2 seeds, especially when you have these seeds that are coated. These seeds are more likely to grow than just your average seed. Did I just put 2 in that? Oh, see. Now, I'll tell you, with me being on the camera, I do get distracted really easy because, like I said, I have concentration, memory problems, all that. Little trauma stuff, you know. It's all good, but my memory and what I'm doing sometimes is really hard for me to keep track of. So, I'm going to just show you what I do with these. Like I said, I just usually put, now when I do the uncoated seeds, I will put 3 or 4 in each container because sometimes they're a little harder to get growing. Those seeds are always less expensive. These are definitely about double the price, but I think it ends up being about the same because I usually I usually waste less seeds because if I'm able to put 2 in and I end up getting 2 plants to grow in each little container, then I don't have to use as many seeds. That's not making sense. Anyways, it ends up being about the same cost-wise when you figure in because you do have to thin them once they start growing, or if you have too many in one container, they'll strangle each other out anyways. So it's better for that one to grow that's really strong. So you weed them out anyways. And so if you're wasting less seeds, it ends up being the same cost effectiveness, if that makes sense. I'm going to just show you guys about how deep I bury them. Now, again, you always want to read because each seed is different. Even different tomato seeds can be slightly different, but these are 1/4 inch. So, you know, that is not a whole lot at all. You know, just a little bit of soil over there. And you want to kind of just, again, lightly pat it down. Let me show you on one so you can see a little bit better. And then what I do is I go through and after I'm done with this, I make sure I have them in a tray, which these ones I have in my good tray that has the water saving bottom so that they don't drown. Oh, I got a little carried away with that one. Sometimes if I have to do that, I'll even dig a little bit out, but you want to make sure that they're buried deep enough. You don't want to not have enough soil on them or they won't have a chance to grow right either. And then the first time I really do good at saturating the soil, I do not drown them, but I get a good amount of water on them. I am going to, for now, I'll just stick this right in there because that is my end of my thing, and I'm going to have to go back and chart and make sure that I list that these are the only ones that I have this seed in. And then I will go back and start planting the next seeds after that. I will mark and make sure that I have that on my chart. And I blabbered away. It's all the same. About a little bit about me, which, I don't know, maybe it was too much too quick, but it's me, it's who I am, and it's part of my life. So I will continue planting. I will let you guys go. I appreciate anybody who has taken the time to watch this entire video because I know it's a long one. If you have any questions about anything that I do with my gardening, any tips, any tricks, I may or may not be able to answer them. I have great places. We have a college here that does free classes on gardening, and they all the professors and even the students that are studying, I can't remember what they call it. Anyway, it's a program they have at the University of Utah, here in Utah, and I can email them with a question if I'm having problems with, I've had a fungus on my plants before in my garden, my squashes. I've had bug problems, and I contact them, and they help you out so much. It is so crazy, and it's free, and they're so amazing. And I'm sure there's programs like that all over. So, I do have some knowledge. So, always feel free to message me and just like comment on my videos or whatever. I do have a link to my Facebook page. I only have had one person join it, so it's mostly crochet stuff on there. But yeah, feel free to leave a comment. And if you have anything else that you want me to cover and make a video on, I'd be happy to. I still have not gotten around to fixing my son's blanket. Sometimes things are not easy for me to get motivated to do. Plus, I've been working on a couple other special projects that kind of took precedence over it. And I'm going to let you guys go. It was good talking to you guys, and I hope you guys subscribe, give me a thumbs up, share me out. I would like to grow my channel, and we'll talk to you again.